I wanted just to ask some questions then in terms of what you're seeing, what you guys are seeing, and what you feel is sort of state of the present, what types of things you see that are useful here that you might either as an investor or startup or industry player find useful. So I'd like to open the floor up and anyone can jump in and share their thoughts. And maybe I'll do it this way. As we look at these ideas of these features, so the idea of having links to best practices or videos around best practices, is that something that you feel is compelling? Or when you think of your portfolio companies, or you think of your own learning around how to internationalize your business? I'd like to open up the floor. This was mainly meant as an online presentation of this new VentureCloud concept. And if anyone would like to jump in, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think have been barriers to growth for startups or transformation for companies in the post-COVID time, and if any of these ideas are useful.
One thing, Chris, what I just thinking regarding the platform and as a new tool which will support the activities, that somehow I think that there is a need for kinds of facilitation, or let's say that should be some person responsible to facilitate particular things. But if that will be the gap in the knowledge or something like that, that should be the kinds of the follow-up that, let's say, bring the information which was requested in the terms of maybe short videos or something that could be used for the good practices. Because that should be something that accelerate the presence of the people of the platform, and also it should be something that will support the delivery of the information which was requested.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's perfect. I mean, what I heard when we've been doing, we've done research for about 6 to 8 months on this whole dynamic of how you could do something online, and it's been very evident that the idea of crowdsourced content, or this crowdsourced concept where it's somehow grassroots up and it just happens, that's not how it works. Like that does not work. And you really need to have a structured, sort of intentional and repeated kind of a rhythm to ensuring that there's good content coming on and that there are things that are useful. So this idea that you're describing, I think makes a lot of sense. I know also, David Gerster, I can see, good to see you, man. I love the backdrop there as always, beautiful sunset. That's right. And, we've talked a little bit about the opportunity around investors, and, could there be kind of an added derivative benefit of a community like this if we're curating good startups and bringing good companies in here and looking at the topics of growth? Might there be a derivative opportunity where angel investors could actually identify some startups to invest in? And, we're certainly not the 1,000 startup, plug and play option. We're kind of more that there's, 5 startups that are really, really good and that are really appropriate for solving a particular domain problem. And we don't need to spend all our time scouting and filtering and blah, blah, blah. We just cut to the chase. And hopefully the investors would appreciate that as a bit more refreshing approach to relationships, especially internationally, since there's lots of barriers to begin with, with non-Delaware Corp or other, non-resident startups. But David, do you have any thoughts about
I think, speaking from personal experience, so I recently sat through the latest Y Combinator batch of 200 companies, and it was a bit of a mixed bag, and it was a bit of a slog. And then I went to the Harvard Business School Angels get-together for Northern California, And it was just 5 companies, and 4 of them were good, and 2 of them were like really interesting, right? And so to me, that's a better format than, you know, the Y Combinator format, which I think they've tried to be responsive to criticisms that it's just this big like shotgun approach, this sort of scattershot approach, but there's still no avoiding that it's like 200 companies and you're not interested in like 70% of them. And so, yeah, I do think that angel investors and small early stage VCs will appreciate, you know, a more curated sort of collection of investment opportunities. I don't know if anyone has ever sat through Y Combinator demo day. It's just like, it's just this relentless barrage of like 1-minute pitches.
So yeah, I think that David, you know, when we talked a couple 3 weeks ago about sort of the idea of how do you get angel investors who have a lot of flexibility, actually, they have a lot more flexibility than traditional investors or, you know, say venture capitalists who have an investment philosophy that's defined even before they get the limited partners in, and then the limited partners are there, and then they got to march to that drummer. Whereas angel investors are much more agile. They're also very interested, I think, in international stuff. And so I think that I think this is one of the areas that I hope that we can continue to tease out in terms of a private group that might, be involved in this area. I wanted to turn to Christos or was there anything else, David, that you wanted to mention or that we should explore?
Oh, no, I just wanted to agree with your point about its quality versus quantity, right? When you're the notion that you're going to present like a small list of like 5 well curated deals that are all going to be of interest, right? I think that's a lot more valuable than, again, what I've seen from various accelerators, including Y Combinator, right? There's also Alchemist and 500 startups and so forth. And my experience with that format is it's a bit of a mixed bag. And, again, I was talking about the Harvard Business School Alumni Angels Group. By the way, I went to Berkeley Haas for business school, but I was able to connect with this angel group and go to their meeting. And it was like 5 really good deals, right? And so I think, my personal experience sort of bears out what you were trying to say.
And I mean, for my case, I've sort of like moved to Europe, about 10 years ago, and I've been doing these events and these gatherings year over year, just basically because how else do you meet interesting people, but, try to bring interesting content together. And we've never really done the investor angle like we're talking about here, really. However, we've showcased over 300 companies, including, Christos, you've been showcased probably a couple of times. I don't know. We've had you probably in our book a couple of times. I know your brother came over that one year in 2016 to the Bay Area, and he and I had a great time together. And but we never went out. We never posted this stuff on AngelList. We never showcased it with an investor network. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking back then, but anyway. So I think that there's some derivative opportunities here. And Christian, the guys out of Estonia, I think this is exactly the kind of fun, dynamic stuff that we can be doing as you guys are focused on your business and you begin to get your commercial mojo with your external facing story as we've been working together a bit. And then along the way, the best thing to do when you're out there selling and commercializing your business is to have some investors observing your success. Because when they start seeing you landing deals, guess what? They're going to come in a heartbeat. It'll take you 2 phone calls and you'll have an investor, because they don't want to, guesswork. They want to see that there's revenue and that the customers are buying your stuff. So I think that there's an interesting dynamic here. I don't know, Christos, I mean, you guys haven't done a lot of international fundraising. You've been kind of a little bit more on the R&D funds and so forth, right? But are there any thoughts that the startups on the call might share some light on? It's hard to get international investors. I just will say that outright. I know that's really tough, but do you think that something like this might be useful, even in your local ecosystem? Maybe there's a local angle.
Yes, first of all, thanks for the invitation and the introduction. My name is Christos Gerdamilis from Prisma Electronics, a company dealing with Internet of Things and big data analysis for predictive maintenance primarily. We are very conscious and we are open to opportunities. In the past, we have exploited the ability to raise funding, but at the end, we concluded and we have preferred to use government grants, European Union grants, in order to bring the company in a position with proven outcome and be in a position for a bigger raise. I don't know if this is a wise decision or not. Simply sometimes it's a matter of opportunity, chance, luck, whatever, and of course, primarily people. So connecting people is always very important. And thanks a lot, because at least we strongly believe that you are doing this pretty well. So it is really interesting to hear the concept that you are introducing. If the content is, let's say, easily digestible, then it will be a success, because it's difficult for everybody to read endless documents and describe and try to understand what someone is saying. Probably a combination between content in order someone to prepare and working together, networking, pitching stuff is always important.
Yeah, so, it's interesting for me because, Christos, you and I have known each other for many years, right? We met back in 2016, I think, and it was a while ago. I remember when we were in the mission together, trying to get that parking spot, and those guys almost beat me up because I was standing in the road there. But anyway, we've known each other for a long time. But, we never sat down and got your commercial story on a video and shared it in a community. Whereas Christian, we talked last week, the first time we're meeting, you're kind of at the stage that Christos was, back in 2016. And I'm pretty sure if we invested some time in building a story that was for your target customers, and we had a platform like this, that the next 6 years, we were sharing it with potential customers, not in a direct way, but just kind of along the pattern or the path, that there would be some serendipity. I'm sure of it. There would be some serendipity that would come out of it. And we would have given you a digital twin that would allow you to kind of, shorten some sales cycles and get some additional deals. So I'm pretty sure that there's something to the idea of an online platform where it's curated and you got the right corporates and the right startups coming together, and the startups are investing in their commercial story in not a sales way. I don't believe in pitches. I'm super tired of pitches, but I do, and I think executives are too. I mean, the startup executives, but I do think everyone wants to be educated and to learn. And so these questions of why, what, how that we try to focus on in the content, I think is a nice way to do it. And, I think I'm going to leave it there, you guys. I'd love to talk some more. I hope that we can continue the discussion. In any case, we've been doing these events for 10 years. And the reason I told you why we did them, because we wanted to be relevant and we wanted to facilitate relevant interactions between really talented people that were ambitious and trying to transform something big. And I think if we can agree that that is not every person that has that mindset, but that there is a peer value in coming together, and that COVID may have pushed us into a new collaborative opportunity that I would love to follow up with everyone and perhaps explore this further. So are there any final comments before we close?
Hi, from my side as well. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. My name is Christian Tiik. I'm from Estonia, representing company Efenco. We provide to industry carbon neutral fossil combustion solution using plasma assisted combustion. But regarding your question, actually funny fact that 2016, what you mentioned, we started that year, and now we are in the stage where we really need to get the doors of the corporates open. And I guess the platform you talked about, and as you mentioned, we just last week were onboarded. I would say I don't know much about what it is, but I hear that it sounds to be relevant for our journey as well. So let's see how it works.
I mean, that's just, I gotta say, it's music to my ears, because I have to tell you, these events are not easy to organize. Now, the outcome is typically new relationships, and that's great because that's what we want to do. We want to create the relationships. However, there's a lot of residual value that's just disappears. It just kind of goes into the ether, never to be seen again. Listen, I'm excited. Thank you so much for taking the time to discuss the pre-launch of this new VentureCloud platform. You know, Piotr, Jan, that we can discuss this some more as we look into our partnering activities in this next year, as well. Christian, Christos, from the startup perspective, Jurgen, and of course, David there in Burlingame. We have a survey which we've developed. We're going to share the survey after this session. And if you would be so kind as to give us your thoughts through that, what the survey is going to include, 3 things. It will ask you some questions about what you feel are your capacities as an organization, either the network that you have, the knowledge that you have, or the interest that you have. So that'll be one set of questions, 3 questions. The second category will be around what you feel your gaps are. So what are some areas that you feel would be helpful? So that could be either in terms of the organizational network, you know, the kinds of companies you're trying to meet. So if I think of RDS Fund, I know we've talked a lot about partnerships and how can we engage, for example, a Johnson & Johnson in New Jersey in spending some time with the portfolio companies in the fund. And so that would be an example of a network area, a need, where we could say there's some pharmaceutical companies or some healthcare companies, and we would want to explain what function of the business we're interested in. So is it the logistics teams? Is it the R&D teams? Is it the chief information officer? What are the functions of the business? And then what's the geography? So the name of the company, the function of the business, and the geography. That would be an example of what we would cover in this questionnaire. And then what kinds of knowledge would be useful. The last question area will be around features and functions. We're going to share some features from the platform, and we're going to have you, it's a really cool survey tool. You can kind of rank things and slide them up and down and put them in order in terms of what you think is useful. So that's basically what we're going to do. I think expressing interest both directions on a spring health and well-being related gathering. So I don't think it'll be the only thing we'll focus on, but it'll be one of the things we focus on. And I hope that the conversation we've had around reimagining how corporates can transform and how startups can grow together is a great basis for that and partnerships as well. So thank you again for attending, and sorry, Jan, you couldn't be here in person. I know you almost made it, so that would have been fun because you're going to miss the after party, which is going to start in about 45 minutes. And we have Moldovan wine.
Yeah, but I hope that, let's say that will be the opportunities to meet. And as you mentioned, that Finally, and also what David was said, that I also observing the two direction, the let's say big venues where is the thousands of participants, and the focused event where there is 100, maximum 150 people. It's much more successful in terms of outputs. And I think that let's say that if we will focus that the platform will bring something that is already filtered, so we could say, and there is already something like the important stage of development or quality, which will support the future projects, that I think could bring a lot of the let's say quality development instead of quantity, because the major things is the good projects with the good approach, solving the different aspects, using also deep tech and other solutions. That I think that is so important, that should be more, even maybe smaller meetings, like some groups could meet somewhere during even the events, but we could say that will be side event related, and there will be also information about the outputs from such event on the platform, or a short video or something like that, that for sharing the information, that will be important to facilitate the growth of the platform.
Yes, very good. Yeah, I think there's a ton of potential. I think that when we watched the Rich Lyons presentation earlier, from Berkeley, and he showed this explosion of all the stuff happening on campuses, I think that same thing is happening in every ecosystem. And my observation with Berkeley is that they need to have more cross international cooperation. And I noticed that when we were in Seattle last month talking to University of Washington, same thing. Their head of the Entrepreneurship Center was really interested in connecting with startups from Europe, because everyone's getting more mature. Everyone can see that it's about not building local companies, but global companies. And that's part of the thing they want to bring to their student body and to their programs. So I think this is something that's an opportunity. So, not a sprint. We don't need to run into it, but certainly something that we can step by step continue to move closer to. And I think we're all, the people on this call, in a good position to make it happen. So thanks again, Piotr, Jan, Christos, Christian, Jurgen, David, Marcin, and anyone else I missed there. Great to have you. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back online in about 15 minutes.